Mahesh Bindra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand on behalf of New Zealand First to speak to this bill. This bill, Mr. Speaker, rightly amends 3 acts of Parliament in an effort to improve public safety, reduce crime, and hopefully reduce reoffending. The abuse of alcohol and other drugs has been the bane of our lives. It is a major driver of violence, as the other speakers have previously mentioned. And unfortunately, therefore, one of the drivers in the breakdown of our society, the quintessential Kiwi lifestyle. We have to change behaviors if we are to ever rebuild the lives of the offenders, their victims, their families, and our communities. This bill, Mr. Speaker, will change behaviors, we believe. It will change the behavior of hopefully all of the nearly 50% offenders who report that they were under the influence of either alcohol or at least one drug at the time of their arrest. It will also hopefully change the lives of approximately 2/3 of community-based offenders who have drug and alcohol-based addictions. As the law currently stands, Mr. Speaker, the courts and parole board may impose conditions requiring the offender to abstain from consuming or possessing alcohol or drugs. But very rarely are offenders or Bailees ever required to be tested for compliance. There's no legal authority to require offenders and individuals on bail to submit to testing, nor were there any consequences for lack of compliance. To New Zealand First, it makes sense to change the situation. This bill, we believe, will change that situation. The current 3 acts, Bail Act 2000, Sentencing Act 2002, and Parole Act 2002, are good. They give provision for courts and parole boards to place conditions on release or bail relating to the abstinence of alcohol and drugs. However, this bill gives these current pieces of legislation more grunt, more teeth, to be able to bite at the offenders who are using and abusing alcohol while on bail or in the community. Now, personally, Mr. Speaker, being a part of the correction systems earlier as my previous employment, I have actually personally seen the success of a random drug testing system within our prisons. I have seen personally the number of prisoners within the wire, number of prisoners who used to use drugs go down drastically because of random drug testing. Now that system actually works 2 ways. It imposes penalties for non-compliance. At the same time, it has got some incentives at the time of their parole hearing if they do comply with the requirements consistently. Now, I must, at this juncture, Mr. Speaker, congratulate the Department of Corrections for that success and changing people's lives. Some of my colleagues have very unkindly mentioned that the Department of Corrections also deserves congratulations for getting rid of me. So, but that was only to New Zealand First, Mr. Speaker. The bill makes sense because it will require all those on bail, parole or community-based sentences who have conditions imposed on them, such as abstention from alcohol and other drugs, to be tested for compliance. And if they are not compliant, there are consequences. Consequences for stepping out of line, Mr. Speaker. New Zealand First likes that. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand is faced with a group of offenders, Bailees and parolees, whose offending is directly related to their use and abuse of alcohol and other drugs. So if we are to ever protect our people and property, we need to seek a change of behavior. Legislation drives a change in behavior, and so does education and support services. New Zealand First hopes that this bill will mean that those offenders at highest risk of reoffending because of their abuse and use of alcohol and other drugs, will be forced to change their behavior. That the consequences they face if they are not compliant with conditions placed on them once this bill has passed into law, encourages them to stop abusing alcohol and other drugs. We hope that not only are such conditions placed on them, but they are also ordered to attend rehabilitation and support services so that they can learn how to manage their addictive tendencies. We presume that the testing will be random, and we support this because it defeats the purpose if the offender, Bailee or parolee.
Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I regret that I have to interrupt the member because it's time has come for me to leave the chair. The debate is interrupted and set down for resumption next sitting day. The House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 10th of March 2015. I wish members a productive recess.